Well, hey, and welcome to week 5 of Life in the Overflow. Today we're going to talk about making Jesus your one thing. Do you remember McDonald's? Now, I know you're probably thinking, McDonald's, they have the golden arches on every corner. What are you talking about? I mean, do you remember when McDonald's was McDonald's? I remember back in the day, McDonald's was the place to be. And they had a really simple mission. It was fast food that was fun. It was okay to go to McDonald's and get greasy food, and nobody tried to dress it up as anything else because it was your break. Remember what they said? Have you had your break today? And back when I was a kid, I remember at McDonald's, they had their own mascots. They had Ronald McDonald and the Fry Guys that basically looked like pom-poms with feet. And they had the Hamburglar and Grimace. If you've never seen Grimace, imagine Barney the dinosaur and then another larger purple dinosaur eating him. I mean, Grimace had some cheeseburgers. He looked like he had a healthy appetite. But McDonald's was awesome. I remember going in as a kid and I just wanted more than anything during the summers when I'd stay with my grandparents to say, take me to McDonald's and give me a Happy Meal. And when I get the Happy Meal, there was this giant box of cookies in it. And there were toys that were really quality toys. I remember getting one that was a transformer, and it actually was made of it was like a cheeseburger that turned into a robot. And I thought that was so cool. McDonald's was known just for being fun. Oh, and then there was the playground outside. Remember that? The Playland. I remember when I was a kid, it was still made of like metal equipment that was shaped like hamburgers and different things in the restaurant. And I just loved going to McDonald's until the critics started rising up. They started telling McDonald's that their simple vision of fast food that was fun, a break, wasn't enough. They started saying, well, your playground equipment, it isn't safe and it isn't sanitary, and so just like that, Playland went away. And a few years passed and they said, McDonald's, people aren't really treating you like a break, they're eating you more often, and obesity is on the rise, and you really want to be known for health. And McDonald's started swapping out their cookies for things like apple slices, and I'm all for health, but I don't normally think of health when I'm going to McDonald's. Do you remember when McDonald's started becoming the sponsor for the Olympics? As if Michael Phelps won 20-something gold medals by eating quarter pounders. After that, McDonald's got to the place where they said, you know what, really, you're not trendy, you're not keeping up with the times. And so they switched it and they became McCafe, the coffee shop that's sophisticated and suave. But there was already one of those. It was called Starbucks or Panera. And then lastly of all, McDonald's was told, you know what? You've got other markets that are opening up, other types of food that people would rather go to. You're not complex enough. You're not offering enough different menu options. And so they came out last year with the guacamole burger to give a Mexican option. And somewhere along the way, I just feel like McDonald's kind of lost themselves. And it went from being simple to just being this complex chore that it lost all the joy. And here's the thing. If we lose the clarity of our purpose, we lose our joy. And then everything just becomes work. I think about our own lives. Would you define your life right now as having joy? Would you define it as simple? Would you define your walk with Jesus as a dance that's just boundless adventure? Or is it just something you get up and face another day? Jesus wants to become our one thing. He wants to give us a really simple vision for our life that fills us with joy. So many other critics rise up and say it can't be that simple, and they overcomplicate it. But I want to talk today about what it would look like for us to get back to simplicity. Think about when you first came to Jesus. Do you remember the weight being lifted off of your shoulders, the wide-eyed wonder, suddenly finding hope? Now think about when you got out of bed this morning. Is it the same kind of hope? Or are you weighed down? When we lose clarity on our purpose, we lose our joy. And our lives go from being simple to being complex. But Jesus still just wants to be the core joy of our heart. He wants to be our mission statement. He wants us to be lost in Him. Look at the way David prayed it in Psalm 73. He said this, God, whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. his portion, the one thing he was looking for to say, if I got this, I got everything. I got the treasure. He said, God, you're my treasure. But in the same way it happened with McDonald's, all too often the critics rise up for us and say, it can't be that simple. If you want to be a success, there's a whole laundry list of other things you need to do other than just making Jesus your treasure. But Jesus has called us to the simplicity of the gospel, to make him our one thing. I want to read one other scripture to you before we apply it in our questions today in our group. It's from the Apostle Paul. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And he says this starting in verse 2. He said, I feel a divine jealousy for you, because I betrothed you to one husband, to present you as a pure virgin to Christ. But I am afraid that just as the serpent deceived Eve by his cunning, so your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. It's how God defines the gospel, the simplicity of the gospel, pure and sincere. But if we're to make Jesus our one thing, it requires letting go of all the other things we're holding on to. I remember a story I heard when I was young in a Sunday school class. They talked about the way they trap monkeys over in the jungles in Africa. They hollow out a coconut and they put shiny plastic pieces that look like jewels inside of it. And they tie it to a tree. And the monkey reaches in to grab it and they clench the jewels and they won't let go of the other treasures they're holding. And sure enough, their fist, though it was small enough to go in as just their hand, when they clench a fist, they can't get it out. And because they'll never let go of their treasures, their captors can walk right up on them and take them away. I think it's the same thing with us. If we want Jesus to truly be our treasure, the gospel says that he is the treasure that was hidden in the field and that we can know him. But we've got to open our hands and let go of the other treasures. We've got to clear our crowded house. We're going to ask some questions today about the other treasures that we hold on to that keep us from following after Jesus. And the other mission statements, the other things we think we have to do that really burden and clutter our house. We're going to ask Jesus to meet us there. And we're going to return to the mission statement and with it, find our joy.